Hey guys, Guys197 again, this time with a review of the 144th scale weapons for mobile suit. Kinda pointing out the obvious there, from Zeta Gundam. Now, before we go on, I want to make absolutely clear that this set is designed for use with the antique models, the ones from the 1980s, and that in this review, I'm going to show how they work with the modern kits. So, let's immediately get started with the main event, the weapons for the Hyzak, because as you may or may not be aware of, the Hyzak was a big disappointment in terms of accessories when it came to the high grade, as it only came with his little Zaku machine gun. So, let's get started. First of all, we have his missile pod. Now, at first I thought that there was no way that this was going to fit on a model because it required a hook. The old model had kind of like a hook where it would fit in. And I thought to myself that there was going to be no way that this guy had that same hook. Well, think again. It has the hook. Not only does it have the hook, it's the exact same size. I mean, it's such a good fit that it almost seems like they made it for this purpose. I mean, it's a little bit floppy. It will get less floppy once it's connected again. But it will actually fit on there and it will stay. And it's usable and it looks good. I mean, sure, it flops around a little bit, but there you go. This is actually a pretty decent pose standing. And, of course, you can just position the arm a little bit around it so that they will stay up. I mean, this is pretty much amazing. Because, once again, this wasn't designed to work with this guy. Now, you also get these little missiles that fit in there. Well, you can kind of throw them in there. They will fall in. And they will fall out. So pretty much these are around for if you like to do modding and have them like shoot out with a few wires and stuff. And oh yeah, you get 6 of these, 1 for each of the holes. Now, accessory number 2, a little beam saber for the Hyzak. Fits into the hand reasonably well. Will stay in there, will not fall through if you do not move it around too much. Once again, pretty damn good considering it wasn't designed to work with it. Now, melee weapon number 2, the Heat Hawk. And this is actually a pretty big Heat Hawk. I mean, let's get some comparisons. Here it is with a standard-sized 1/144th scale Heat Hawk. I mean, these are worlds apart. And here it is with a 1/100th scale Heat Hawk. Still, it's bigger. So this really is a giant Heat Hawk. And once again, this fits like a glove. Just slides into the hand, no problem at all. Once again, just be a little bit careful that you do not touch it too much because then it will fall through. But once again, this is pretty amazing. And unlike the beam saber, this one can actually be stored on the mobile suit. And also, it makes the missile pod a little bit less floppy because you slide it in here. And then, because this Heat Hawk hits the thruster flaps, the missile pod will stay up a lot better. Something you could also do is like put a bit of paper in here because it won't be all that visible and it will keep the missile pods up. Now, the final accessory is the Marsi beam rifle. Now, as you probably notice, I have cut off some of the plastic here in the back and the front, because otherwise it wouldn't really fit. I mean, it could hold it, but then it'd be like in a very ridiculous pose. And now, so it actually requires very little work. It's just a hobby knife. Well, you just grab a hobby knife and you start carving away. And the result looks like this, and that's actually pretty decent. I mean, once again, I just took a hobby knife and started cutting off things. It's not like I did anything crazy with it. So for the Hyzac, this kit does wonders. I mean, you start off with a Hyzac with just a stupid machine gun, and now you've got a big arsenal. So that's all for the Hyzac. Let's get on to the other weapons. The next set is for the MK.II. You get his Hyper Bazooka, and you get an extra ammo pack. Now, in comparison with the new Hyper Bazooka, it's quite different. And as you're probably guessing, this isn't going to fit into the storage thing because this is a lot thicker. Now, what it will do is fit into the hand. And it will actually go over the shoulder, which was kind of a surprise because this handle doesn't move and it is molded at that quite awkward pose. So I have to fight with it a little bit, but in the end you can get it to kinda go like this, and now it looks decent. You also get 2 of these rockets or missiles for the bazooka. And just like the missile pod, they slide in, and fall out. So these are just there for if you like to do some crazy mods or something. Now, you also get an ammo pack for the bazooka. The one on the bazooka itself isn't removable, but this one does have the little connector parts. Now, originally these won't fit on the model, but I once again grabbed my hobby knife and started carving away the plastic. And if you put a little bit of effort into it, voila, they will fit. Just try not to scrape away too much plastic at one time, and then you will actually get a pretty nice result. I mean, it's of course way too big, but it does look interesting. Now, the final accessories are, you get 2 extra hands, which are of course useless for us because they're for the old models. They use pegs, not ball joints, so yeah, that's that. And you also get 2 of these beam pistols for use with the Rig Diaz. And they're, unlike the Hyper Bazooka, these are a lot smaller. And in case of emergency, you could always try to, well, this is just a tiny bit too small to fit on the rack of the Hyzac, of the Rig Diaz or Shizram Diaz. So if for some reason you lost these guns, you could always use these as a replacement. Like I said, you just have to enlarge the hole a little bit and they will fit. Oh yeah, also these have 2 pegs at each side, 1 peg at each side, and the newer ones only have 1 peg at one side. And one last thing I forgot to mention about the Hyzac's beam rifle here, well, about the Marsi's beam rifle, is that the cartridge is actually removable, and for such an old kit, I'm quite surprised that it's such a good fit. Now, as always, the inevitable question is, do you want to buy this? And well, first of all, I should point out that because this is such an old kit, you will have to glue it. But that's all. Technically, you should paint it. I mean, a lot of green should be involved in the Hyzac's equipment, but yeah, it's gray, it's molded in gray, so you don't have to paint it per se. And it will look pretty good as is. So, if you have a Hyzac, definitely buy this. This will be a an awesome addition for your Hyzak. I mean, even if you have a couple of Hyzaks, you can simply spread the weapons across your multiple Hyzaks. So definitely pick this up if you have a Hyzak. You won't regret it. If you just have a Mark II, don't bother. Because honestly, the main event of this set are the parts for the Hyzak. Simply because the Hyzak is, to be honest, if you take everything into account, the Hyzak just isn't all that great as high-grade Universal Century because you get so few accessories. And this totally makes up for that. Actually, I would go as far as to say that this set makes the Hyzak complete as a high-grade Universal Century model. That's it. You just have to buy this to have a complete Hyzak. Now, if you also happen to have a Mark II, that's just a nice extra. So, that's all for this review, and see you at the next one.